So good news, it is official that the debt ceiling bill has finally passed the House and the Senate, which means once this bill is signed by President Biden, the U.S. would avoid a catastrophic default. That's really good news. And if you think this is good news, go ahead, hit that like button on this video. Now, just because the U.S. has avoided a default this time doesn't mean there's not additional problems in the future. Doesn't mean there's not going to be problems in 3 months, in 6 months, and in 18 months. This is turning into a little bit of an issue. So yes, even though this bill passed, this still means we are going to see changes. But what are those changes going to look like? Well, let's get into that. First off, many foreign officials have publicly stated that this major fiasco by the United States is leading them to reassess the stability of the U.S. and whether or not they want to continue holding U.S. dollars. Again, this is part of the problem. It's because of this that many lawmakers have questioned what might happen in the future. And this is what we're going to get to in just a moment. Now, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, this is the debt ceiling bill that just passed through the Senate last night. This passed with a vote of 64 to 36. Now, or 63 to 36. Now, many Democrats voted against this bill because of how it was negotiated and the provisions that were within the bill. Even Senator Bernie Sanders said this, and I quote, "I could not, in good conscience, vote for a bill that makes it harder for working families to avoid the outrageously high price of childcare, housing, and healthcare, while by cutting IRS funding, actually making it easier for the wealthiest people and the most profitable corporations in America to cheat on their taxes." Just think about that for a second. He couldn't vote. This bill still passed, but he couldn't vote for it because it makes it harder on working families to afford childcare, housing, and healthcare. And then we obviously cut IRS funding, which is, according to him, says will make it easier for the wealthier people and most profitable corporations to cheat on their taxes. But yet the bill still passed, and many Democrats voted for it. He also went on to say, "At a time when over 45 million Americans are drowning in student debt, I could not, in good conscience, vote for a bill that eliminates the moratorium on student loan payments that has been a lifeline to millions of working class families during the pandemic." Here's the thing. And by ending it with a lifeline to millions of working class families during the pandemic, that makes things very interesting because the pandemic is over. We're done. We are done with that. Officially, we are out of that. So why would we continue to give student loan payment pauses, right? Why would we continue to do this moratorium? Why would we forgive, student loan debt if the pandemic is technically over? So I don't know about his wording there, but this is what many people questioned, that this was a pandemic-related bill. This was a pandemic-related assistance program. This was not supposed to be a lifelong thing. And so now that the pandemic is over, we should go back to normal. But yet, in many cases, that's not what we're seeing. Now, many Democrats argued that President Biden should have invoked the 14th Amendment in order to avoid this potential default, but obviously he didn't do that. We now have a bill. However, this does not mean there's not active discussions about eliminating the debt ceiling in the future. And it's because of these reports, and they're now indicating that world powers have major concerns about the threat hanging over their head in just 2 years. And if we have the same fight in less than 2 years, in like 18 months, what is it going to look like? And what will the outcome finally be? Will we default? Well, because of this, that Congress must find a way to not hold the U.S. economy hostage come January 1st, 2025, when the U.S. debt ceiling suspension actually expires. And here's the reason why experts are saying that both parties held the U.S. economy hostage. Democrats say that Republicans held the debt ceiling hostage by requiring the far-right agenda be passed in order for the debt ceiling to be raised. But Republicans, on the other hand, are also saying that Democrats held the U.S. economy hostage by coming out and saying that they will not negotiate the debt ceiling, which would obviously, well, ultimately, it would lead to the U.S., it would let us down a very slippery slope and even more debt. So that's why Republicans are saying, no, you guys wanted to just suspend the debt ceiling, then we would suspend it indefinitely. No, we weren't going to do that because the debt ceiling is what is preventing you guys from continuing to just waste our taxpayer dollars. So this is where the negotiations are actually starting to begin, because everything that we are going to negotiate now, we still have to look at that debt ceiling. We still have to play within the boundaries, within the rules, right? So this is where the negotiations are really going to begin. Now, will we see the debt ceiling, mixed in, this fight for the debt ceiling? Will we see it mixed into the next Social Security bill? Some expect it will be. Some expect that Social Security is now going to be, we're going to see major changes, because Congress is most likely going to attempt to reduce our deficit over the next 2 years. That's most likely what's going to happen. The fight is going to be reducing our deficit, not to increase the debt ceiling. Now, if the plan is to reduce the deficit, though, how does this impact Social Security? How does this impact SNAP benefits? How does this impact affordable housing, Medicare, Medicaid, right? How does it impact TANF? Will we see the Social Security Administration get less funding? Odds are yes, it probably is going to happen. Will we see the Social Security tax cap change more than just keeping up with inflation? Possibly. Will we see Congress have enough support to change the way that the cost of living adjustment is calculated? Again, it's quite possible. And is President Biden ever going to fulfill his promise of that $200 per month that he promised all Social Security recipients? Again, all of this depends on many factors. The debt ceiling is now one of those. Now, I don't want to come on here and say that, yes, this bill finally passed. We're out of the woods, no problems. I look at the stock market, things are green, everybody's happy. That's great. But again, this is just one of the things. This is potentially going to be a catalyst as to what we see in the future. Are we going to see the stock market continue to rally, or will it start to sell off? Are we going to see this debt ceiling? Is this going to impact the economy in the short term? Or is this only going to impact us in 6 months to 18 months? Well, we don't know yet. The good news is, yes, Congress got us out of a little bit of a mess, but they also got us into this mess. The problem now is, how is it going to look in the future? Is the mess going to be worse? Is it going to be better? Well, we don't know. But one thing I can promise you, I will be here every step of the way. I will fill you in on all the latest news and updates. All you got to do is 2 things. First off, hit the like button on this video. Also, click that subscribe button so you never miss an update. And I will see you guys on the next one.